Picture this. It's 2:47 a.m. Sarah's lying awake, staring at her ceiling, her mind racing. She has everything she thought she wanted: the job, the apartment, the relationship. But something feels desperately wrong. She can't name it. She just knows that if this is success, why does it feel so empty? What Sarah doesn't know is that she's experiencing something a man named Socrates predicted 2,400 years ago. A problem so universal that every person watching this has felt it or will feel it. And here's the thing. There's a tool specifically designed to help with this exact crisis. Something that's been stress-tested for millennia: philosophy. Now I know what you're thinking. Philosophy? Isn't that just boring academic stuff? But what if I told you that philosophy is actually the most practical thing you could study? That it's literally the art of not screwing up your life? By the end of this, you're going to understand exactly what philosophy is for and how it can transform the way you live starting today. Let's start with what the word actually means, because hidden inside it is the entire point. Philosophy comes from two ancient Greek words: philo, which means love, and sophia, which means wisdom. Philosophy literally means the love of wisdom. But here's the crucial question. What is wisdom? Wisdom isn't just knowing a lot of facts. Wisdom is knowing how to live. It's knowing what matters and what doesn't. It's understanding yourself deeply enough that you don't self-sabotage. Think about it. You can have a PhD but still marry the wrong person 3 times. You can be brilliant but have no idea why you're always angry. You can make millions but wake up at 2:47 a.m. wondering what the point is. Intelligence without wisdom is like having a Ferrari with no steering wheel. You've got power, but you can't direct it toward anything meaningful. That's exactly what happened to a billionaire named John. He sold his tech company for $800 million when he was 35. By 37, he was in therapy, deeply depressed, saying, "I achieved everything I set out to do, and it turns out none of it mattered." John wasn't stupid. He was unwise. He'd never stopped to ask, what actually makes a life good? He'd just absorbed society's answer: money, status, achievement, and climbed that ladder only to find it was leaning against the wrong wall. This is where philosophy comes in. It's the discipline specifically designed to ask, which wall should my ladder be against? So what specifically does philosophy help us with? After studying hundreds of philosophers across 1,500 years, 3 critical gaps emerge. 3 areas where humans consistently mess up their lives. Gap number 1. We don't ask the big questions. Here's something strange. We'll spend hours researching which phone to buy, but we won't spend even 30 minutes thinking about what we actually want from life. What is the meaning of life? What's a career actually for? How should I spend my limited time on Earth? Most people treat these questions like they're ridiculous or unanswerable, so they never ask them. And then they're shocked when they wake up at 40 having lived someone else's life. Let me tell you about Marcus. He became a lawyer because his parents were lawyers, married his college girlfriend because it was time, bought a house in the suburbs because that's what you do. And at 42, sitting in his office after winning a major case, he had a breakdown, because he realized he'd never actually chosen any of it. He'd just drifted. Socrates said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." If you never stop to ask the big questions, you'll live on autopilot, following scripts written by other people, scripts that might have nothing to do with who you actually are. Philosophy says, the big questions aren't pretentious. They're the most practical questions you can ask, because how you answer them determines everything, every choice, every priority, every moment of your life. Gap number 2. We don't understand ourselves. Quick experiment. Why are you watching this video right now? You probably think you know. To learn something. I'm interested in philosophy. It showed up in my feed. But what if I told you that scientists have proven we often have no idea why we do what we do? And worse, we make up reasons that sound good but aren't actually true. We don't know ourselves nearly as well as we think we do. Take Emma. She kept dating men who were emotionally unavailable. Every single relationship had the same pattern. Her friends saw it. But when they pointed it out, Emma would say, "No, this guy's different." She genuinely believed it. Each time. After her fourth heartbreak, she finally went to therapy. And what emerged was shocking. Emma's father had been emotionally distant, and some deep part of her was still trying to win his love by choosing men who couldn't give it. Emma had no idea she was doing this. None. She thought she just had bad luck with men. This is what the Oracle of Delphi's famous commandment means. Know thyself. Socrates made this the center of his entire approach. He asked questions that forced people to examine their own beliefs, motivations, and contradictions. He'd ask, "You say you value honesty above all else. But yesterday you lied to your friend to avoid conflict. So do you actually value honesty or do you value comfort?" These questions are uncomfortable. They reveal that we're strangers to ourselves. We have blind spots the size of continents. Philosophy is the practice of turning the light inward. Because until you understand why you do what you do, you're just a passenger in your own life. Gap number 3. We're terrible at predicting what will make us happy. Imagine I gave you a choice. Option A, win $50,000, or option B, take a 3-month trip where you learn a new language and make deep friendships, which would make you happier in the long run. Most people, about 80%, choose the money. But research shows that 6 months later, the people who took the trip are significantly happier, while the people who took the money are back to their baseline happiness level. We're spectacularly bad at knowing what will actually improve our lives. Let me tell you about David. He was a mid-level manager obsessed with getting promoted to vice president. He believed that once he got that title, he'd finally be happy. He worked 80-hour weeks for 2 years, missed his daughter's dance recitals, stopped exercising, barely saw his wife, but he got the promotion. And you know what happened? For about 3 weeks he felt great. Then his new job was more stressful. His relationships were damaged. His health had deteriorated. And worst of all, he started thinking, if I could just make senior vice president. The philosopher Epicurus, writing in 300 BC, predicted exactly this trap. He said humans constantly overestimate how much happiness external things will bring, and underestimate how much happiness simple things provide: friendship, health, learning, nature. Epicurus lived in a garden with his friends. He ate simple food. He had almost no possessions, and ancient sources say he was one of the happiest people anyone had ever met. Modern psychology confirms he was right. Studies show that once you have enough money for basic security, additional wealth has a tiny effect on happiness. But things like quality friendships, time in nature, physical health, and meaningful work have enormous effects on life satisfaction. Philosophy is about getting really precise about what actually makes life good, so you don't waste your one precious existence chasing things that seem glamorous, but are ultimately empty. Now here's something that might surprise you. For most of history, philosophy wasn't locked in universities. It was everywhere. In ancient Athens, philosophers set up in the marketplace. They talked to shopkeepers, politicians, soldiers, anyone who'd listen. Roman emperors hired philosophers. Marcus Aurelius, one of Rome's greatest emperors, was literally a Stoic philosopher. His private journal, Meditations, was him reminding himself to stay wise, to maintain perspective, to focus on what mattered. Philosophy wasn't an abstract intellectual game. It was practical guidance for life, and here's what's emerging now. We're rediscovering that we desperately need philosophy, because we have more information than ever, but less wisdom, more choices, but less clarity, more opportunity, but less meaning. Let me show you what practical philosophy looks like with a modern example. This is Michael, a software engineer in San Francisco. At 28, he was making $200,000 a year, but he was miserable. He came to a philosophy discussion group and said, "I don't know who I am anymore." We started with simple questions. What did you want to be when you were 10? When was the last time you felt truly alive? What would you do if money weren't a factor? Michael resisted at first. "These are childish questions," he said. Eventually something broke. Michael admitted, "I wanted to be a teacher. I loved explaining things, seeing people understand. But everyone said there's no money in teaching, so I went into tech." "Do you enjoy tech?" I asked. "I'm good at it," he said. "That's not what I asked." Silence. 6 months later, Michael quit his job. He now teaches computer science at a community college, makes $60,000 a year, and he told me, "I didn't know I could feel like this. I thought contentment was a myth." That's practical philosophy, using ancient wisdom to cut through modern confusion and build a life that's actually yours. So how do you actually start practicing philosophy? Here's the beautiful secret. You don't need to read complex books or get a PhD. You just need to start asking better questions. Practice 1. The evening review. The Stoics did this every night. Before sleep, ask yourself 3 questions. What did I do well today? What could I have done better? What did I learn about myself? 10 minutes a day. That's it. Practice 2. The big questions quarterly. 4 times a year. Schedule 2 hours to ask. Am I living according to my values or someone else's? What am I avoiding that I need to face? If I died tomorrow, what would I regret not doing? Practice 3. The happiness audit. Once a month, write down, what actually made me happy this month? What did I think would make me happy but didn't? What patterns am I noticing? These aren't therapy exercises. They're philosophical practices. They're about examining life, building wisdom, living deliberately. Remember Sarah? Lying awake at 2:47 a.m., feeling that something was deeply wrong. 3 months after that night, she started reading practical philosophy. Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, modern philosophers. She started asking the big questions she'd been avoiding. Why was she in a relationship where she felt lonely? Why was she pursuing a career that drained her? What did she actually value? The answers were uncomfortable. She'd been living for external validation, her parents' approval, her peers' envy, society's checkboxes. But here's what happened. Sarah ended that relationship. Not out of anger, but out of clarity. She changed careers, took a pay cut, became a landscape architect, something she'd always loved but dismissed as impractical. A year later, I asked her, "Do you ever have those 2:47 a.m. moments anymore?" She thought for a moment. Sometimes, but now I have tools to work through them. I ask myself philosophical questions. I examine what I'm really afraid of. It's like I'm not a passenger anymore. I'm driving. That's what philosophy does. It doesn't make life easy. It makes life examined, intentional, yours. So here's my question for you. What will you do with this? You now know that philosophy isn't abstract nonsense. It's the most practical discipline there is, the art of living wisely. You know the 3 gaps: not asking big questions, not understanding yourself, miscalculating what brings happiness, and you have practical tools to address each one. But here's the thing about philosophy. It requires something our modern world rarely asks for. It requires stillness, thought, self-examination. It requires you to stop scrolling, stop consuming, stop being busy, and start being wise. That's uncomfortable. There's a reason most people avoid it. But there's also a reason that every single person who seriously engages with philosophy says, "I wish I'd started this earlier." Because philosophy doesn't just help you solve problems. It helps you become the kind of person who doesn't create those problems in the first place. So here's your starting point. Tonight, before you sleep, do the evening review. Ask those 3 questions. What did I do well today? What could I have done better? What did I learn about myself? Just 3 questions. 5 minutes, that's how it starts. Just with the simplest, oldest philosophical commandment, know thyself. And from that knowledge, everything else follows: wisdom, purpose, perspective, and maybe, just maybe, the kind of life where you don't wake up at 2:47 a.m. wondering what went wrong. Because you'll know. You'll have examined your life deeply enough that you're living it deliberately, and that, in the end, is what philosophy is for.